Alright, hi everybody. Are you ready to learn about Opus 27? We're going to cover the bulk of the set here in under 30 minutes. First, let's talk about the set overview. There are 129 cards in this set. 8 of them are starter cards from the 2 starter decks that just released. You won't get these 8 cards other than occasionally in a foil. If you're looking to get a playset of these, I recommend buying the starter decks. We have 9 LB cards this time around, all of which are multi-element cards. There are 30 core set full arts and 3 legacy reprints. We've also got a crystal token and a signed card. If you ignore the signed card and the crystal token, you're expected to get about 1.4 full arts in a box. This is down from 1.8 full arts per box from last set, which is a little disappointing. The box topper this time around is... the signed card is Terra, and the pre-release topper is Erinville. Moving to product release updates, box toppers are no longer being distributed in booster boxes. This is actually a little understandable considering they just recently changed the number of packs per box to be half of what they were before. And even when boxes had 36 packs in them, box toppers were kind of in an oversupply. I don't think it's bad to have an oversupply of a full art, but we're also getting those through tournament promos, so that's okay. Let's look at series representation of the set. The main showstoppers are going to be Category 8, 12, 14, and Strangers of Paradise. FF14 looks really high, but also consider it's a little inflated with standard unit chaff. There's still a lot of good juice in here from Dawn Trails that I'm pretty excited about, despite being a certified Dawn Trail hater. Let's go over the cards. If you're new here, this is how I cover things. I'm going to be actually sorting these by archetype, and this time I'm going to actually go through some generic stuff first. Then we'll get into the main support for archetypes like Warriors, FF8, 14, and 12. There's actually really interesting stuff going on with Knights, Dancers, Sop Fafo, and FF5, so stick around for that too. At the end, we'll cover a few miscellaneous cards that are still notable but don't fall cleanly into any existing archetype. The backup line consists of 1CP dudes that don't do anything unless you pay an extra cost when you cast them, which always includes another element. There are 2 elemental triangles, if you may. When you pay the extra cost, you're going to get the benefit of that other color in that extra cost, so Chemist is going to be added to the few non-ice cards that can actually dull and freeze things. My main takeaways from these is that Summoner gives Earth a non-targeting removal, and Earth has color fixers like Tyrontado to help with the water cost, as well as multi-element cards like Une and Garnet. Additionally, I'm going to have to start learning how to play Bard in FF14 because look at this. We also got a standard line unit in the form of some forwards, 3 CP7Ks that do their elemental thing when they enter, but they do it again and better if you control a multi-element forward. Bard is dulling and freezing a forward, and a backup Viper's dealing 3k and 7k, Thief has haste and cannot be blocked, Gladiator breaks a forward of cost 1 and cost 2, Blackmane has the opponent select a forward of 2 CP and 4 CP to put into the break zone, and Pictomancer is a little complicated. It lets you discard a card to break a forward of the same cost of the card you discarded, but it also lets you cycle a card from your hand with a card in your break zone. You presumably are doing this first so that you have exactly the right card that you want to discard for the effect that actually breaks something. There are plenty of good multi-element cards to pair these with, like Zidane, Axstar, Forwall, Tonberry and Cactar, and many others. But the main reason any of these matter is more so in a standard unit list with the new LB card, Warrior of Light. Being multi-element himself, he searches a new standard unit and plays it onto the field. He's also going to let you draw and discard a card whenever a standard unit enters. This lets you select the answer that you need to any given board state, but also lets you get access to soldier candidates. Warrior of Light can also play backups, so his draw 1 disc 1 effect is actually a little helpful to justify the 1CP dudes we just covered earlier. I don't think having these on their own is strong enough, but maybe as a secondary package to another archetype pulls out their potential, not unlike how we saw Vikings become relevant for Uniswarm lists. Each of the monsters this time do their standard elemental effect that you'd expect, but they have an action ability that does it better. None of these guys are forwards, so keep in mind that you can use these tab abilities the turn they enter. Fire Elemental is dealing damage, 5k and 8k when sacrificed. Jesper is dulling and freezing 2 forwards, then breaks a dull forward when sacrificed. T-Rexar activates 2 backups and then kills a 9k or higher when sacrificed. Malboro prevents a forward from being blocked and deals 3k damage per different element you control, I guess. That's Earth-like, I suppose. Coral breaks a 2 or less forward and a 4 or less forward when sacrificed. Tonberry is doing a 2k power reduction and then breaks an 8k or less forward when sacrificed. None of these cost 2, so probably none of them make it into existing monster lists with Realm and Witch of the Fens. Fire Elemental is interesting for hitting Magissa, but is a hot 5 CP. Fire Elemental and Coral can be a 2-for-1 for 6 or 5 CP under ideal conditions, but honestly, I'm more so worried about answering like high cost 9Ks and 10Ks right now, so T-Rexar and Tonberry look appealing, but it's just a net 4 CP removal tool on a monster instead of a summon exclusively for big guys. The summons in each set normally follow a specific pattern, but this time around they're doing one of 3 different things. They're either doing an amplified effect when you remove something from the game, they reveal off the top and do something, or they just do something else completely different. Ifrit and Chaos both want you to RFG something else. Ifrit is going to deal 5k or 8k when you RFG an Ifrit from your break zone. Chaos doesn't actually do anything unless you RFG a non-multiplayable character from your field, but it lets you search for another copy of them and adds it to your hand. Ifrit is easy removal for 1 CP if you have other Ifrits in your list. Chaos might find some use in lists like Dancers, just to get your named copy of Lilith or Mayakov off the field to make room for the other one based on the matchup or board state. Sky Pirates or Cat 12 might also do something similar with Vaughn or Penello. Hashmal and Ramah both skim the top 3 cards of your deck for something. Hashmal lets you declare a job or category, and then you get up to 2 of the revealed cards of that job or category. This is kind of crazy. In Earth, you could call for category 12, 15, maybe 14 now with some of the new cards that we're about to see. Category 14 for the 12. There's also FFBE for Soiree and Warriors of the Crystal. Relevant jobs other than those could also be Warrior of Light, Knight, Warrior. Ramah, however, is just looking for more copies of Ramah. 6Ks, I guess, hitting Realm, and some other Ramahs are doing modes to break monsters, but I mean, I don't know. This is killer art. I hope it sees use, but I'm personally quite whelmed. Leviathan and Moomba are doing their own thing. Leviathan's bouncing a 4 to 4 or less, and then free playing a 3 CP or less onto the field. Dull. There's no element or color restriction here, so it's just another fun way to shoehorn Zidane into everything. Moomba breaks a dull or damaged forward, and it can cost 0 if you dull 2 Category 8 forwards, so there's obvious synergies there with Category 8 being what it is. Alright, we're at the juicy stuff now, okay? Before we start talking about existing archetypes, there are 3 cards I want to call out that can slot into quite a few things generically. First, Jack Garland. When he enters the field, you select a job. Jack gains protection from that job for the rest of the time that he's here with us, and then at the end of each of your turns, choose a forward with the selected job and remove it from the game. This is really strong at a first glance since we have so many job-based archetypes in the meta right now, but hold your horses. If the opponent already established a daunting board state like Rifia or Ramza, they can just use their action ability in response to Jack declaring a job when he enters to remove him before his protection applies. That's my biggest gripe with the card. If you are being proactive though and you put him out before they set up, which, I mean, Knights can do on their first turn, so realistic, I don't know, he could really halt the momentum. Repeatable removal here is also really nice. Specifically, this can help against lists like Sky Pirates, Icons, Dragoons, Scions, Warriors, so like most of the fun lists instead of the really daunting ones that are unbreakable like Knights, Rifia, and Sevenwall. If the opposing list has access to water, they also have quite a few options to shut this off. Porom and Kuchulain remove his protection. 6 CP Leviathan just yeets him on EX burst. And we have a plethora of power reductions from summons and unique jobs. Still, I do think he is really quite exciting, and if you need to see him early, I suggest running this Earth Chaos to play him just straight from the deck. Next is Zeromus. Zeromus is giving all of your forwards protections from being chosen by summons or abilities, as your opponent has to pay 4 CP or the effect is cancelled. Alternatively, they can pay this tax with a crystal. This is a huge momentum stopper, and when paired with other cards like Charlotte, Orin, Siren, or Yuna, you could potentially set up a wall that is nigh unbreakable. Being an 8k makes him quite susceptible to Amaterasu though, so if the opponent has a cheap way to target him like Porom, he's again not going to be doing a whole lot. Though against decks like Rifia and Knights, I think they have the resources to deal with this, but it can absolutely cause problems if played early. I think Monofire is going to love this card, but I also could see him being played in some Rifia or Knights or Warriors lists, maybe even at like one-ofs. You might even have him in Waterfire monsters to make Witch even more annoying to deal with. Lastly, I want to talk about 7. I firmly believe Amaterasu is the best summon in the game. Eventually, we got this Leviathan, and it saw limited play, because it never actually removed anything. 7 also doesn't remove anything, but instead of being a summon, she's a backup that can be played at summon speed. So she's still helping build a board presence, which is what I really like about her. Being a backup also makes her less answerable. This is another card on the set that I think can help slow down momentum and some of the leading decks. This is going to be able to deny things like Tyva's Search, Refia activation, 4-Wall activation, Arc free play, Ferris damage or search effect, Axstar's free play, Ferris' free play, Fran's free play, Karilla's free play, Realm's free play, Alizé's free play, Grauha's Tutor, also Estinian's Recursion, Y'shtola's Power Reduction, Siren and Zeromus' protection effects. Every time I play a deck that doesn't have fire, I wish I could slot in Amaterasu to stop these massive opening plays that put me on the back foot right away. And this in the opening hand lets me control the pace of the opening while also giving me CP next turn. The main downside is that she's wind, capped at forwards of 5 or less, and she's not multiplayable. This isn't going to stop Shentotos, this isn't going to stop 7-Wall, but I think it's enough to justify adding her to lists already running wind that don't already have access to Amaterasu. But what would that even be? Maybe she finds a home in Category 12. I'd say she has a home in Dancers. Ice Wind lists, maybe. Mono Wind Storm builds are an obvious choice. Maybe there are some future state monster builds where we pivot to Wind Water. Oh, ninjas, of course. What a wonderful pipe dream. Please print ninja support. Okay, let's cover the main archetypes of the set that took up the most space. Warriors, Category 8, Category 12, and Category 14. I was really worried about Warriors getting so much support this set. But honestly, this is kind of exciting. What I'm seeing is going to actually lead to different types of warrior builds instead of purely strengthening existing ones. Tyvus is generally considered the centerpiece for warriors, being able to free play a warrior of cost 3 every turn. The only relevant 3CP warriors are Cloud and Wook Lamont from the starter decks. Wook Lamont is able to give warriors an additional ping damage since she can fairly reliably deal 7k on entry and attack. You've also got this Mog 6 that is worse than the other one that warriors have been using. Let's look at Gilgamesh. I really like this Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh has the field ability that gives all warriors Brave and lets them attack twice. He also dulls 2 forward when he enters. His S ability breaks a forward and gives him haste. There are a lot of huge synergy opportunities here, like letting Wook Lamont attack twice for 2 7k pings. Axstar's damage on attack can happen twice too. Virion is going to draw you more cards when he attacks. The main downside here is since you can't free play this guy off of Tyvus, you're going to need to dedicate more lightning cards to the list. Luckily, we have some really interesting lightning warriors sprinkled to us across some other recent sets. Ramza lets you apply pressure if you invest into crystals, which might not be a bad idea if you anticipate going up decks that are running Zeromus. Gav is a great way to get Clives and Ifrits to your hand. Lund is the real star here, being able to dull a forward whenever a warrior attacks to really throw wide the gates. This suggestion's a little silly, but you could also justify a Kindu since it's playable off of Tyvus, but it'll enter the field from the break zone for 2 CP whenever Gilgamesh enters the field, setting you up for 4 attacks next turn. With all these double attack options, it's hard not to recognize Behemoth as an explosive asset, allowing one of our attackers to potentially deal 4 damage. Warriors is also getting some very interesting ice cards that really transform what a warrior deck could be. Ish is the Laswell of warriors, dulling and freezing a forward when she or a warrior enters. She also reveals the top 3 cards of the deck and adds a warrior to your hand when she enters. Clara is going to dull 2 characters when she enters, but also freezes them if you control 3 or more warriors, including herself, which is pretty easy to achieve. We've got a backup to help with this, Call, who can sacrifice himself to recur a warrior from the break zone. Maybe this is an easy way to get a second Gilgamesh for his S ability or something. With all of this dulling and freezing options here, it might be some potential to slot in Zac for extra removal options. Leaning more into ice with these cards lets Axstar become more castable without the help of Tyvus as well. These guys are all 4 CP though, so it makes it a little harder to manage since Axstar is going to dull and freeze all of them when he enters. Speaking of Axstar, we also got Ilmonte. She is not a warrior herself, but boy does she love warriors. If she or a warrior is ever chosen by an ability, the opponent has to discard a card. Warriors obviously aren't going anywhere anytime soon, but if they are sticking around, I'm at least glad that they're stretching into new elements to give matchups more diversity. Moving on to Category 12, it turns out the cards we got for them last set were actually really good, but only when played together with Category 8 cards, and you were self-milling into the break zone with Bosch. These new cards don't help with any of that previous game plan, but they still look really good in a different way. Fran is a Sky Pirate backup of cost 2, that'll be important later. She has a tap ability that increases the damage output of a Sky Pirate by 2k. This is repeatable if you have a way to activate her. Balthier from Opus 21 now does a 5k ping instead of a 3k ping whenever he or a wind character enters. There's also Vaughn from Opus 23, who can spend 2 crystals to deal 4k to the whole board or 6k with his increase. If you have a way to activate Fran, like with Balthier's action ability or Evray, or a Tomos, you can bump this up to an 8k board wipe with just 2 Fran activations and the 2 crystals. Vaughn's S ability lets him double the damage that he's dealing, but keep in mind if you are combining this with Fran, the opponent actually chooses the replacement order, so they would usually make the doubling happen first and then add the plus 2k on top of that, so it's still a 10k board wipe, it doesn't really matter, but just keep that in mind. Interestingly, Noctis is causing an entering forward to deal damage, so you can actually increase the Noctis ping if the entering forward is a Sky Pirate. We also got a new Balthier backup, who is also a 2-cost Sky Pirate. He's going to deal 4k damage when he enters, and that can obviously be bumped by Fran to 6k. If you do pay an additional 3 CP when he enters, it'll deal another 4k. I still think I'd rather run the forward Balthier, but we'll see. There's still opportunity for this one too. The main reason I'm so excited about this Fran and Vaughn is that they actually enable removal in a way that I think Cat 12 really needs it. Lastly, we've got a new Vaughn. This is expensive, but it pays itself back very well. You're either getting 3 Sky Pirate forwards of your choice added to your hand, making this a net 1 CP 9k, or you're playing 2 Sky Pirate backups of cost 2 from the deck onto the field. This is insane. Instant access to Philo and another tool like Fran or Tomage can really set you up for success early. Unfortunately, this is a card named Vaughn, so there's a bit of name clash going on, but this feels pretty deliberate, so you couldn't just get Philo and Vaughn the backup out at the same time for instant access to 3 colors. I was pleasantly surprised last set with the success of Cat 12, so I hope you all surprise me again this set. Okay, so to be honest, I'm kind of uneducated into the inner machinations of Category 8, but I'm going to try my best here. First, we've got some synergies with witches. Adea and Ultimecia have always been witches, but now we've got Adele 8. When entering the field, you can remove a witch from your break zone from the game to give Adele 1k and can't be chosen by characters of 4 or less, permanently. Outside of this, Adele is just good for being able to break a forward whenever they attack. Adea lets you search out a Category 8 character of cost 2 or less and play it onto the field. This gets you things like Sid Kramer, Raijin, Fusion backups or forwards, the new Cypher, or Alone. If playing Cypher, you can break a 5-cost or less instead of a 2-cost because there's a witch onto the field already. I think having this option is nice, but the old Cypher is breaking a forward on every attack. But at least this one has an S ability to help with the name clash. Ultimecia is dabbling into water, which is off color, unless you're getting out Sid Kramer, but she does have a really interesting form of removal. If you RFG 3 cards from your break zone, you choose a forward, take control of it, and your opponent basically has to pay for it again, or it dies. I don't think this necessarily lives in Category 8 decks specifically, but it's an interesting removal effect. We also got new Raijin and Fusions. The new Raijin is cool for allowing you to dull a Fusion to deal 5k, but the backup Raijin is giving Cypher haste, and that's still really good. And if you're doing any self-mill, the ones that play themselves from the break zone are also just still really annoying. We also got some additional cards for Ice. Renoa searches for a Category 8 summon and dulls and freezes a character when a summon is cast. The new Moomba summon can be cast for free if you dull 2 Category 8 forwards and breaks a dull or damaged forward. Renoa's S ability lets you dull and freeze 2 characters. Rain is the cool backup that either searches Laguna or free plays a Squall from the deck onto the field if you already control Laguna and pay 2. This could be interesting when paired with some of the Fire Squalls to give more indirect damage options. Of course, there's also the new Squall that'll add a Category 8 card to your hand from the top 3 cards of your deck, and he can break himself to play a Cat 8 character of 4 or less onto the field during your turn. This obviously lets you play other Squalls in your hand to get around the name clash. You could also play Selfie for haste support, Gilgamesh for break effects, or the new Zell. Zell is a really nice EX burst to have, reliably dealing 9k since there's a lot of Category 8 backups to play out reliably. Oh yeah, Laguna, of course. He got a new card too. Rain is searching him out, but this one does both of the effects if played off of Squall. He can break a dull forward, or make the opponent discard a card. The Squall from Opus 22 can also play Laguna onto the field if the new one doesn't suit your needs. The main thing I'm seeing here is that there's even more removal options in a category that already has a lot of removal options, so I don't know if we're approaching diminishing returns here yet or not, but the potential scares me a bit, not gonna lie. The main theme with FF14 in this set is centered around Dawn Trail. Thematically, all of the Scions of the 7th Dawn are now their basic jobs instead of being a Scion. Basically, none of these cards are really doing anything for existing Scions decks, but they could take FF14 builds into some new directions, which is kind of like the main theme I'm seeing here in this set, which I'm really happy about. I love variety. Anyway, Kona, this dude. He's going to play a Category 14 character of 2 or less onto the field, and he can also dull a forward with his tap ability. That immediately makes me think of Zac. Again, I'm Zac build, I'm sorry, I'm going to stop bringing him up. The free play from deck effect is really strong here. We have a new Thancred and Urianger who specifically want to enter the field from Kona already being out. Thancred is dealing 7k with Kona out, otherwise he only deals 4k. And he also has a 0-cost ability to activate a Category 14 forward, which also seems really strong. Ravana is an old meme card, but like, free activation? Come on, Behemoth. It's right there. Sorry, daydreaming. Staying on topic. Urianger is a color fixer like the old Moogle line, and he's also drawing you a card if Kona's out onto the field, making him effectively free. You can also play this new Kryl from the deck, who lets you grab any card from the top 4 of your deck if you control 3 or more different elements, which is kind of better than drawing a card. Kryl also has an action ability that costs 3 CP to play a character of 5 or less from your hand onto the field during your main phase, but to do this you have to pay with 3 different elements. You could use this to cast Kona from your hand, then play Thancred or Urianger from your deck, all for 3 CP, but at that point you already have access to 3 colors, and then I don't know. I don't know how impactful that is when you already have access to 3 colors. We've also got a couple more interesting cards here in FF14. Erinville is the first generic Category 14 searcher we've ever gotten, and it's an EX first, which is nice. It can also pay 1 and break him to get a Wook-Lamont from the break zone and add it to your hand. Speaking of, other than the warrior we saw earlier, there's another Wook-Lamont in Earth who discounts herself for each Category 14 character on the field. When she attacks, you either break a backup of cost 4 or more, or add the top card of the deck to your hand if it's a 14 character. I'm sorry, what? Break a backup? Kian? Come back out of the attic. We have something for you. 4 CP or more? I mean, what? There are a lot of 2 or 3 cost backups to be fair, but there are a lot that are 4. On the topic of Hien, look at this dude, Zeralja. Gains 2k haste if you control 4 or more Category 14 characters, and he breaks a forward when he attacks. At damage 5, he breaks another forward when he attacks. Yeah, okay, Hien, let him attack twice, please. G'raha Tia is the last card I'm going to talk about for 14. When entering the field from your hand, you reveal the top 5 cards of your deck and look at the number of colors revealed, then shove those back to the bottom of the deck. If there were 3 elements revealed, draw 2 cards. If there were 5, your next card's cost is reduced by 4, and it can become 0. If there were 8, remove all characters from the opponent's field and break zone. Okay, 8? How the hell do you do that? Across 5 cards? The top 5 cards of your deck. Okay, well, I have some ideas. Really, you just need 4 Wool, an Ice Lightning card, and a Light card, and a Dark card. And that's a really low chance of success. 3 out of the 4 of these things are already played in 7 Wool decks, so if you can find a disposable way to include Dark cards in those lists, G'raha might be able to enable a board wipe for you once every 50 games. I'm sure there is some way to make this more consistent, like with Astrologians, Leviathan maybe. I need to see a recorded match of this happening where it matters. Very exciting card. Okay, the main course took a little bit longer than I expected, so now we're in the lightning round. Knight's got 2 interesting tools. Charlotte is a contested name but prevents the opponent from using action abilities, which might matter from mirrors. Radar can be an annoying tank that takes no damage and redirects damage to him, negating it. Really annoying on top of the original Charlotte, making her even more unkillable. Both of these are flippable off of Karilla. Dragoon's also got 2 cards, a new standard unit backup that lets you sacrifice it to get a Dragoon from the top 2 cards of your deck, and a new Kane. This Kane looks playable enough to likely stop running Wind just for the sake of having Kane. He has an easy cost reduction effect, making him usually cost 2 CP, and he can gain haste and first strike for 1 CP. His high base cost makes him a little bit harder to answer since cards like Cloud specify 4 or less. Being a 9k with the threat of first strike lets you swing in more often. I think this is perfectly playable. Dancers finally got a significantly more playable Wind backup, something that activates 3 Dancers. Lillicet and Penelo love dulling Dancers, so this lets you do that more often. We also got a new Mayakov, and that has a pretty big name clash, but he still might be worth running against decks like Chaos Arc that have non-ability based targeting. He can also dull 2 Dancers to make a forward lose 2k power, or dull 4 to draw a card. He also has an S ability that lets you activate 3 Dancers. You can also use Chaos Walker of the Wheel to replace this Mayakov with the other one if you need to. This alongside the backup lets you stonewall the opponent in really annoying ways. Glad these guys are still kicking. For monsters, we got another Gao. There's obviously a big name clash that makes this harder to justify, but getting 2 characters of cost 2 or less from the top 5 cards of your deck makes this pretty affordable. This also lets you turn your monsters into a 5k Brave buff for Gao, and is repeatable, allowing him to either trade or outright beat Ifrit in a fight. I still think it's probably better to have the ability from the other Gao that lets you turn monsters into forwards, but there's also potential here too. This doesn't need to be played in monsters either. He has potential in some other lists, but I think that's the most obvious output for him. Category 5 finally got a search card with Kryl. This might be important for Refia variants that run a lot of card named Barts. There's also a new Barts. If you control 4 more Category 5 characters, he gains Haste, First Strike, and Brave. Then he adds 2 FF5 cards to your hand from the top 7 cards of your deck. Lots of net 1 CP 9Ks this set. FF10 has a new Yuna that searches Titus. Name clash aside, this is kind of nice to get the Titus engine rolling. There's also a new Titus that helps reduce inbound damage to himself and another forward he selects on entry. Sin needs you to remove 15 cards from your break zone, but the opponent sacrifices 2 forwards and a backup of their choice, which is brutal but really expensive. Seymour has a ton of potential. When he enters or attacks, you can pay 1 to do up to 2 things. Break a dull forward, dull freeze 2 characters, reduce your next summon by 4, or have the opponent discard a card. Being a 5 cost in ice makes him viable in Verstale decks, but he might also make it into mono ice builds or even maybe into ice wind lists. His summon cost reduction is very appealing to me, making non-targeting removal more accessible like Hecatonkir, Adramelech, or Zalera. We've already talked a bit about Jack Garland, but there's also a wind version of him. He is going to add a Sapphifo card back to your hand from the break zone every attack phase, making him almost as annoying as Estinian. But I think his targets are less impactful here compared to Scions. If you control a dark character, he can't be chosen either. Chaos Advent is a really interesting card. When Chaos Advent dies, reveal the top 7 cards of your deck and play a Sapphifo forward. It becomes dark and gains the job Chaos. Flipping Jack himself off of this is kind of funny since he'll be the dark forward giving himself protection. Other big targets could be the Emperor, Neon, Darkness Manifest, or Bahamut. I don't know how reliable it could be to flip Bahamut off of this, but doing so would also make Arc free. We've got new retainer support. It looks like you could run Category 15 reliably in Mono Earth now. The new Prompto lets Noctis attack twice. My brain rot is telling me to just use the party attack Noctis for this. Prompto also has a repeatable removal and draw power if you have Noctis, Gladio, and Ignis out. The opponent has to select their highest cost forward at the start of your attack phase and put it in the break zone. This is really good, but how reliable can we make this? Well, the new Noctis searches for 2 retainers, which helps, and it has an S ability to 9k somebody. The new Gladio searches Noctis and is an EX, and he also has an S ability to give Category 15 forwards 5k and Brave. This, alongside Earth's normal tools like Tyro, make me think that Mono Earth lists could pull off Prompto's position reliably, but it is rather fragile. The new Ignis helps with this fragility a bit. He costs 2 less if you control Noctis, and lets you dull retainers to cancel an ability choosing a retainer or Noctis. Noctis is also giving retainers plus 2k, making Gladio and Ignis 9ks, but I miss Gladio having Brave innately. This might be what would have pushed them into relevance. Unrelated to retainers, we got another color fixer with Cindy, who produces Earth, Ice, and Lightning CP. She'll also reveal the top 5 cards of the deck and add 1 Earth and 1 Ice or Lightning card to your hand, so ideally she refunds you 4 of her 6 CP. Earth continues to get great color fixing options. I'm excited to see what this opens up. I've also been meaning to do Ice Earth lists recently. Alright, and then there are a few other cards that I want to recognize before we sign off here. Garnet is a self-milled tool, which Category 8 likes, but unfortunately is water. Gilgamesh FFBE likes seeing more cards hit the break zone, and I would argue that Chaos Arc likes to get more arcs in the break zone. She has a tap ability that lets you remove a summon from the break zone to break a forward, which seems pretty nice in summon builds. Could be nice in Water Lightning with some Odins. Zand is really funny. He mutes a job the turn he enters until the end of the turn. At the start of each of your attack phases, he'll deal 9k damage to something and have you draw and discard a card. If you discard card named Zand from this effect, do all of that again. This repeated 9k effect makes him comparable to the Demon, I think. He costs less, but lacks the board wide option. Zand also doesn't need to actually attack to trigger this, he can just sit back if he needs to. Unfortunately, his job protection, like Jack Garland, doesn't matter a whole lot against archetypes like Warrior of Light and Knights. They can just use Refia or Ramza in response to his entry effect. He's also an 8k, making him an easy target for Amaterasu. We've already talked about 7 likely being a mono wind, but in the same vein, Rex is a very interesting card too. This is a 1 CP guy that sacrifices himself on your next main phase to draw 2 cards. It's positive value, and if your opponent spends literally any effort on this guy, they're losing value. We've also got a new Lock who doesn't directly synergize with Category 6, but can be a big payoff for discard-based decks. The main problem is that he's a 2CP 5k, which makes him very fragile to removal in most matchups, so I wouldn't rely on this effect long term. Still, paying 2CP for a random discard is pretty huge. Go-Go is going to make for a very fun and cute pet deck. He can only be played on the opponent's turn, and he copies an auto ability currently on the stack from a forward of cost 4 or less. Love this little guy. Okay, so to wrap this up, I want to provide some of my takeaways. Warriors are being revolutionized. There are more tools available now to slow down matches. A lot of the cards here want you to be in multi-element decks, 3 colors even. We've also got some new color fixtures to help with this. Most importantly, I think an emphasis on non-targeting removal is going to become important for dealing with threats in this set. I used to be an Aldrim allocator, but now I'm not so sure. Maybe the demon is more important now than it was ever. This is the end of the video. I hope this was all helpful. I'm still trying to see what format works best and what provides the most coverage, so let me know what you thought. I'm hoping to still release content maybe once a month. It'll probably either be one 15-minute video or a small batch of shorts, so feel free to subscribe for that. Thanks.